everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bread, Books, and the Bible. I'm your host, Virginia Jones, and I have a special guest with me today in this episode, Wendi Bergin, and she is a homesteader like me. So
hmm
that's why I have her on my show today. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Virginia. I'm really excited for this conversation.
And I'm excited to have you on. So, sometimes I do an introductory of the guest that I'm
hmm
having on, but I decided it would be better for you to introduce yourself. So
Okay.
that way, yeah, you know more about you than I do.
Right? Well, thank you for that opportunity. Just to be quick about it, I'm a homesteader. I live in Central Florida with my husband, and I have two children. He's on his own, but he's home. And then my youngest is 16. And we have seven children. So they're all grown except for the youngest one. We moved down to Central Florida 4.5 years ago from South Jersey. So I am a Phillies fan and an Eagles fan. Hopefully your listeners are okay with that. But anyway, that's just
I
what it
think they
is.
will be.
I miss the Mid-Atlantic. I miss the flora and the fauna. But learning how to garden and homestead in
Mhm,
Florida has definitely taught me a lot. It's pretty cool in a lot of ways. It's
mhm,
my food forests are my favorite thing in Florida right now. I love self-reliance. I love
mhm,
learning new things. I love making my own stuff. I do pressure canning, I do regular water
mhm,
bath canning. I love having a food storage. I love making herbal remedies. I just
mhm.
think it's all so fun and so liberating, and I'm just all about the fun. My business and my podcast are called Joyfully Prepared. I'm all
Mhm,
about being prepared, but doing it with fun. I'm not a doomsday prepper. I'm a joyful prepper.
mhm. Right. And that actually leads into the first question. But before I get into that, my youngest daughter, we have two daughters.
hmm
And so my youngest daughter is trying to build her own business of doing herbal remedies and stuff like that.
Awesome.
I also I do water bath. I recently got into the pressure canning, and the
Yay.
first time I did it, it about scared me right to death.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now that I've been doing it for a while, I love it. I love canning.
Good for
I love
you.
being a homesteader. I love my goats and my chickens, and
Yep.
we want to get geese and maybe some sheep, and who knows what else we'll get. But
Yeah.
anyway,
It's addictive, really.
yeah, yeah. So I'm actually going to hopefully today. I'm not sure if I can get it done today, maybe tomorrow. Um, I'm hoping to make as many things as I can so that I can stop running to the grocery store.
hmm
And thankfully, we have a grocery store that's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes away. Um, but every time we go to that grocery store, we are spending
Oh yeah.
50, $60 every time we go. And it's
Sure.
insane.
hmm
So we actually have balsam fir trees around here. And I know that I can do this with spruce, but I looked up balsam fir syrup, and so I'm actually
Mm,
gonna be making my own syrup,
love
so I
it.
don't have to buy that. It's
Love
one less
it.
thing. Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
so entering into our first question, you're talking about preparedness, not being a doomsday person, which
hmm
I'm not really of that mindset either. I
hmm
want to be able to be prepared so I'm not running to the grocery store all the time.
Right.
So I'm not buying processed garbage.
Yeah.
I wanna actually be putting something healthy into my body
Yes.
that when it does get hard though,
hmm
um, you are actually eating healthy stuff. So, it does take a lot of forethought and, not the last minute, like you said, doomsday thing.
Right.
But you mentioned that, it brings a sense of peace. How
hmm
do you go about even beginning to
Right.
get into that prepared I'm not saying the word right, being prepared,
Being prepared.
and how does it bring a sense of peace to your household?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think a lot of people get really overwhelmed when they think all the things that have to be done to be prepared. And let me just put everybody's worries aside. You can't be prepared for everything. However,
Mhm, right.
you can be prepared, and you probably are more prepared than you think you are. But I would say the first place to start is food. Your
Mhm,
food and water. You have to have food and you have to have water, especially if you have children at home. You
mhm,
cannot not have food. And I'm of the opinion and probably the experience too that you can't, growing up, it was store the dry beans, store the wheat, just
mhm,
the basics, and you can get through anything. Okay, I appreciate that long term, that's going to hold for up to 30 years, those types of ingredients, if you will, or those products. But I have multiple children who dislike beans with an absolute passion, and they will not eat beans. There is a lie that circulates in the world that says, oh, if they're hungry enough, they'll eat anything. That is a lie. It's a lie for
right.
children. It's a lie for adults. It's a lie for
Mhm,
elderly. They will
mhm,
not eat
right.
anything. And so starting with what is the one meal that you know your family will eat. Start there. Break
Mhm,
that down into ingredients and then get a week's worth of those ingredients. So you have that meal 7 times. And
mhm,
make it so that like if it for me it's spaghetti and meat sauce. That's my go-to. So I have 7 pounds of spaghetti, I have 7 jars of sauce, and I have 7 pounds of hamburger. Whether I've canned it or it's in the freezer or freeze
mhm.
dried, I have it. That's where you start, right there with what you eat.
Mhm. And I absolutely agree with you. My husband will not taste beans, touch them, anything to save his life. He is not gonna eat beans.
No. Uh-uh. Nope,
And
they
there are,
won't.
there are certain vegetables that, I would never eat okra. I'm from the South. I'm
Yeah.
from Florida, so they eat a
Okay.
lot of okra down there.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, nope, not touching that.
No. I know. I hear you. And you have to be sensitive to that. You
Mhm.
can't think that you're going to shove something down somebody's throat because they're
Right, yeah,
hungry enough.
right. Mhm.
Their instincts will override their logic. I did a couple podcasts about it last year about the elderly and about children and the types of food that you need to store for those. But the
Mhm,
elderly will not eat anything either or anything, you know what I mean, when they're hungry. And you
mhm,
have to give them more things that are liquidy, like the Ensure or applesauce, things that are
mhm,
soft, because they know what's going on. They're smart enough to know what the problem is, and they'll shut down and not eat because of the stress. And so you have to store for the
mhm.
elderly different than you do even for children.
So that leads me into a question. When you're talking about elderly, my father-in-law, he is on hospice. He
Mm.
has fibrosis of the lungs.
Oh,
And when a crisis does come, you have
yeah,
elderly people,
yeah,
people, though they're going to have different medical issues.
yes,
So how do you go about preparing for
right.
those kinds of situations?
You have to take each individual case for what
Mhm,
it is. I'm sure that there are general rules for people who have cancer, let's say, and on a certain treatment. But then you can have, and there are probably supplies that you can have on hand. But everybody's going to be
mhm,
different with what they eat, the
mhm,
different medications they need to have. Are there herbal remedies that could help in a pinch? But
mhm,
having first aid supplies, are you going to need gauze? Are you going to need band-aids or tubing?
mhm.
You can store those things and you can get all of it off of Amazon. It's easy peasy to
Right.
get it off of Amazon and have
Mhm,
that ready to go in case it's needed.
mhm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because you just never know
No.
the way
Mm-mm.
that the world is going today. You don't know in some ways how to do things or what you need to do, and you do
Right.
need to do your research. It's really
You
important for
do.
that.
And it's not
So
just about like the end of the
Mhm.
world stuff, like we don't know what's going to
Right.
happen. It could be a
Mhm.
snowstorm.
Mhm.
and
Oh,
then you
yeah.
can't get out to the hospital or you can't get to
Mhm.
the doctor to pick up your prescription or to get the gauze or
Mhm.
whatever. Just have that stuff
Mhm.
on
Right.
hand. I don't know how
Right.
everybody does the insurance differently, but I think insurance allows you, I'm not sure, that if you have 30, you get 30 days supply. I
Mhm.
think they'll let you renew at maybe 28 days, and you can
Mhm.
grab those two extra pills, if you will, and put them aside. I don't
Right.
know if the
Right.
math's exactly right, but
Mhm.
something along
Right.
those lines.
Yeah, and, living in Maine, I can tell you right now, we've had situations where we ended up losing power for over a week.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
we had no heat, no electricity, no running water.
So you
You
know,
definitely need to be prepared in those situations. So,
absolutely.
the next question I had for you, and I found it very interesting because I love history. I love hearing people's stories. And I'm actually reading right now a book called Sudden Sea, and it's about this hurricane that happened in 1938. And I'm not sure if that was the year that you had mentioned. I apologize for not
That's
remembering
okay.
that. But can you share about your grandfather's story, though?
Yes, absolutely.
Because in your introduction, I believe you said that, um, he wasn't worried because he had already prepared for
Yes.
things. He was able to keep his business, he was able to stock what he needed to stock. How did that experience, though, shape who you are today?
Right, everything. I mean, my so both my mom and my dad come from preparedness-minded
Mhm,
people. It was the generation too, but my grandpa on my dad's side, he in 1938 their church said to put away supplies for 2 years, a 2-year supply of
mhm,
food and supplies, whatever. And so he said, "Okay, excuse me." And so
mhm,
he and my great grandmother, his mom,
mhm.
they they canned 1,800 jars of food.
Wow.
Now, I don't know how long that took, how many years,
Mhm,
or I know it wasn't in the summer, and I know they didn't have any air conditioning, which to me is
mhm.
like hero status as far as I'm concerned. But they did that, and then he was a landscaper. Back then, they called it a nurseryman,
Mm,
and he put up supplies like chains and tires, anything he
mhm,
needed to stay in business. And so this was in 1938. So you remembered that correctly,
mhm,
that they got the directive. 1941 is when the United States entered World War II.
mhm.
When that happened, all the supplies, all the industry went to support the troops overseas. And so that's where you
Right.
get, Rosie the Riveter, everybody's working to
Mhm.
support. And
Right.
because of that, food, everything went overseas. And the United States, the people in the United States were given what was called ration stamps. So you would
Right.
stand
Mhm.
in line and you would be given a loaf of bread or you'd be given some cheese,
Mhm.
whatever it was that uh, ration stamp allowed.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because my grandparents put up all that food, they never needed to use one of their ration stamps ever.
Wow.
And
Wow.
my grandpa stayed in business when the other landscapers did not. So that is
Wow.
peace,
Mhm.
and the ability to serve other people that comes along with it. And so that
Mhm.
does change everything for me. My dad, grew up with that. My mom's the youngest of 9 children from Idaho. So my grandma and grandpa on that side, they had their own cow, their own garden.
Mhm.
She would take old clothes from grandpa that kind of got worn out like his overalls, and then she would make smaller clothes for the children. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so she was constantly taking the
Right.
flour sacks and making dresses for the
Mhm.
girls. So the
Right. Wow.
industry and the mindset, yeah, started, with my grandparents on both sides and moved
Mhm.
to me for sure.
Wow. Wow, and that brings up a couple of good points, that in preparing, you mentioned that, they asked for 2 years of
Yeah.
preparedness, right? So,
Yes.
how long do you feel is a safe time for
Mm,
canning and preserving food?
right. That's a great
You know,
question.
yeah, because that's really a safety, and the reason why I ask that is because My husband was raised around here.
Mhm.
And so his grandfather lived on one side of us, his great grandparents lived on the other side of us,
Aw.
and their house was built probably in the late 1800s.
Oh, wow.
And they again, they raised everything. They owned
Mhm.
cows. They even made buoys out of cedar and they sold them
Wow.
down on the coast for 2 cents a
Wow.
piece way back
Wow.
then. So when they passed, we went in their house, cleaned out their house.
Mm,
She literally had jars that
mhm.
were, I don't even know how old.
Right.
So what would you say would be a safe time, that people
Right.
could put away,
Right.
food?
So well, first I want to yay for them for being awesome for all their industry. I'd also like to say a lot of times I have found this to be my mindset sometimes. Like I work really hard to
Mhm,
can a whole bunch of strawberry jam
mhm,
and then I don't want to use it. I'm like, oh,
mhm.
this is so precious to
Right.
me. I don't want to use it. So I bet some of that happened to them. And that's why they had so
Mhm.
many jars because there was
Right.
that, depression
Mhm.
mindset, quite
Right,
frankly.
yeah,
So
right.
I kind of leave that at that because I
Mhm.
definitely struggle with that sometimes because like I don't want this to go away. But so FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management
Mhm,
Association for the United States, they recommend that we have 3 months supply of food that we eat.
mhm,
So I would start with 3 months. If I had my way, I everybody would have a year's supply of food in their home. And the
mhm,
reason why I say that is because when and if something hard happens, and
mhm,
it could be a tornado, it could be an earthquake, it could be a terrorist attack, it could be
mhm.
an EMP, or a explosive, what is it called, electromagnetic pulse that comes from the sun,
Right,
wipes
yeah,
out
right.
things. It could be
Mhm,
it could be anything.
mhm.
And what happens, human beings, we do adapt really well. Like we're super
Right.
awesome like that.
Mhm,
But we need some cushion to adapt.
mhm,
So because our bodies and the frames of our bodies, our bones, our central nervous system, we're like, how are we going to solve this problem? How's this going to work?
mhm,
Right? But having food available and having a year supply of food available, it
mhm.
gives you this big giant cushion while you're adapting, while you're
Right.
figuring it out. Is something going to happen that it knocked out that you can't get produce, that you need to
Right.
plant your own produce? It's going to take a while for you to get
Mhm.
seeds in the garden and start to produce. And that's going to be hard too if you've never gardened before. And if it's in the middle of the winter, you can't plant anything.
Mhm. Right.
So that's
Right.
why I do suggest having a year supply of food, but also you've got to learn to use it. If you're going to bring in food, then you have to rotate through it. It can't sit there like what,
Mhm.
your grandparents had. And I've had problems
Right.
that, like I said, I'm not throwing your grandparents under the bus. I have my own problems with food,
Mhm.
holding on to it too long and not using it because it's so
Right.
easy and convenient to go to Domino's and get a pizza versus
Right.
cooking spaghetti. I'm like, I'd just go get a
Mhm.
pizza instead, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's
Right.
that's what I suggest.
Mhm. And yeah, I mean, it's the same with me. My biggest thing is I'll make a bunch of jelly because I like to use the flowers around here and
Uh-huh.
I missed it this year, but we have forsythia bushes and I actually
Mhm.
made jelly. So I've
Yeah.
got a ton of jars of jelly downstairs
Yes.
and I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, you need to go use that. And you're right. In our society, I mean, let's just be real.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier for us to go to the grocery store and
Yes.
pick up stuff,
Mhm.
and we have a meal that might last us one time.
Right.
However, it does bring a sense of productivity, and
Mhm.
when you can go downstairs in your pantry and grab something off the shelf that you have made yourself. Plus,
Yes.
and we're talking about doomsday things, which are real. I mean,
Yeah.
like I mentioned, we lost power for 7 days.
Mhm.
Um, when we had the power outage, it was crazy. We were a town of 1,400 people.
Oh.
When we lost power, you could not get gas,
Mhm.
and it was absolute chaos.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we hate to think like this, but if there was a crisis in this country, you are going to have people looting. You're going to have people, it's just the way some people are.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
if you can avoid going and trying
right.
to get stuff and being prepared, that would
Yes.
be great.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
in in trying to do all this, okay, we mentioned with, picking your favorite meal,
Mhm.
trying to start from there. What tools are you gonna need? Because somebody might say, "Oh, yeah, I would like to get into processing my own food."
Right.
And you mentioned having a garden, which,
Mhm.
we have a garden. Unfortunately, it's overgrown with weeds.
Yeah,
So we've
I
gotta
got it.
get in there and we've gotta clean it out. We have goats, so I'm thinking about putting my goats in there and letting them clear it out.
Right.
Um, but you mentioned having a garden, which
Mhm.
means you gotta have tools to work in your garden, you gotta have seeds,
Right.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
What other tools are people gonna need to even begin this
Right.
preparedness journey?
Right. So like I said from the beginning, food, you need to have food
Mhm,
and water. So I would simply say a good water filter or purifier, you can get those on
mhm,
Amazon. I could give you a list later if you want.
mhm,
Because you need to have potable water at all times. If
right.
something happens to
Mhm,
your water supply, that's going to be a problem. So you've got to learn
mhm,
how to take care of your water. So that's number
right,
one.
right.
Number two, sometimes you don't even need to have certain special equipment. If, for instance, you wanted to start water bath canning your food, water bathing is
Mhm,
putting high acidic food in a jar and with a lid and a ring and putting it
mhm,
under boiling water for a certain amount of time. You don't have to have a big giant enamel kettle to do that.
mhm,
You can put it in a big giant spaghetti pot. I mean, you don't
mhm,
have to have other than the jars, lids, and rings, you don't have to invest a lot in that. And I do
mhm.
have, I can pass that on to you too. I do have a list, an Amazon shop list for water bath canning and for pressure cook canning,
Okay,
if you
awesome.
want me to pass that on to you.
Mhm,
Um, and then pressure canning, you're going to need a pressure canner. An
mhm,
Instapot
right.
is not a pressure canner. It is a pressure cooker. Pressure
Thank you for stating that because I've had so many people say, "Oh, yeah, I can put my canning jars." No, you
No,
gotta do it
no.
right, you know? You
Yes.
gotta do it right.
Yes. So a pressure canner can be a pressure cooker. You can cook food in
Mhm.
it, but a
Right.
pressure
Mhm.
cooker is not a pressure canner. So
Right.
you need to distinguish that. There are electric pressure canners now that you can buy, but ultimately you cannot use an Instapot for pressure canning. So let's be
Right.
very clear about that. We don't want people dying because they think that they
Right.
can do that. It needs to
Mhm.
be very clear, but you would need to have a pressure canner along with the
Mhm.
jars, lids, and rings. And let me tell you something, my friends, if you want to invest a lot of money in it, I go for it.
Mhm.
I'm your admirer. But a lot of us have had to piecemeal a lot of things together. But
Mhm.
once somebody knows or your community knows that you're starting this journey, you will have people offer you jars. Somebody at church yesterday just gave me two
Mhm.
dozen quart
Wow.
jars. Her
Mhm.
mom had passed away and she's cleaning out the house and she found these jars. Do you want
Mhm.
them? Yes. And she just gave
Right.
them to me. I have had people give me pressure canners multiple
Mhm.
times. And so when people know that this is what you want to do, you will be able to start to find this. And let me tell you the secret. It's because God wants you to be self reliant. He is
Mhm.
self reliant and he will allow people to help you on your journey. He will put people
Right.
in your
Right.
path
Mhm.
who will give you jars, who will give you canners, who will give you produce, who will do this or that, or you'll get
Mhm.
it for super cheap. You start to make this a way of thinking,
Mhm.
and you will be so excited to watch the miracles that happen. And you're
Mhm.
like, how did that just happen? Because that's how he works. I
Mhm.
promise you that that will happen.
Absolutely, and I have found that to be true in my own life that, the Lord has opened doors for me to be able to do different things and to meet people
Mhm.
who will teach me skills. I have a really good friend who has taught me so many things about goats, and, I've had people who have taught me about canning and all that stuff, and
Mm,
I'm actually doing a sewing class with a bunch of ladies because I'm
awesome.
trying to reintroduce that skill of
Yes.
making your own clothing. That's
Yes.
something that we haven't really talked about, but,
Mhm.
being able to learn how to make a simple dress. You mentioned
Yes.
the flour sack dresses.
Yep.
I think that's pretty cool,
I
but
do too. I think it's really awesome.
yeah. So, one thing you did mention was how knowing all these skills
Mhm.
brings you a sense of healing. So
Yeah.
could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, when you have peace, you can heal. When you're
Mhm,
caught up in adversity and anxiety, well, not adversity, because you can have peace in adversity even. But when
mhm,
anxiety is constantly present, your central nervous system can't function properly because you're all caught up in everything, right? But when you are prepared, number
mhm.
one, you have options, and options generates peace. If you
Mhm.
know that you can
Right.
do something different ways, knowing there's a military term of two is one is none. In other words, I have two pressure canners in case one goes bad or something
Mhm.
doesn't work. I still have it, right? I still have the
Right,
one.
right.
I have more than that, but that's
Mhm.
beside the point. But when you're prepared, I know how to water bath can. I know how to
Mhm.
pressure can. I know how to, grow herbs or different things like that.
Mhm.
So now I have all these options, not just for
Mhm.
me and my personal well-being, which
Right.
is the number one principle of self-reliance is taking care of yourself, number one.
Mhm.
And then you take care of the people you love, and then you take care of your community. But if
Mhm.
I have peace, knowing that my stuff, that I have knowledge, that my skills are up to date or whatever it is, and that
Mhm.
things are, I'm not even going to say organized because I am not organized, but that I know in
Me
the
either.
general vicinity where to go for things in
Mhm.
my house. That's peace, and
Mhm.
peace is healing. That would be
Right,
my
yeah,
answer.
right. Yeah, absolutely, and, we've mentioned so many, different skills. I mentioned sewing, and we're
Mm-hmm.
mentioning canning. What would you say because back then, it was passed down from generation to
Mm-hmm.
generation. So, what would you say would be a really important skill for the modern woman to be able
Yeah.
to do now?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say two different things. I'm gonna say whatever she wants to learn, first of
Mhm,
all. So I know that's kind of like whatever she wants
mhm,
because I don't want to tell anybody what to do. However, I would say bread baking,
mhm,
learning how I'm not a big fan of white flour because it's so processed and it's so
mhm.
bad for our
Oh, yeah,
bodies.
yeah.
However, it is inexpensive and easy to
Mhm,
get. But and I'm not even talking about sourdough bread. I'm talking
mhm,
about good old fashioned yeast, make your bread, learn
mhm,
what that feels like, learn what it
mhm.
smells like and
Right.
looks like and
Mhm,
tastes like. Because sometimes we forget to put the salt in it. That's not going to taste good. So that goes out to the chickens. I made that for the
mhm.
chickens. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But you throw it to the birds, whatever.
Mhm.
When I went to Italy a few years ago, no, where were we? No, we were in Israel. I went to Israel a few
Oh,
years ago.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Mhm,
we were at Herod's temple, and there were these big chunks of bread just sitting on one of the walls. And I said to the guide, "What is that about?" And he said, "It was like sandwich bread or like a
mhm.
hoagie type bread." And he goes, "Oh, we don't throw anything away. We put it out so that the birds will come and eat it." Like
Oh,
that's
wow.
what they do. So you don't have to throw necessarily anything away. You can give it to nature as
Mhm,
well. Anyway, but um but learning how to bake bread, learning the basics of it. If you can
mhm,
get hold of some freshly ground wheat
mhm,
wheat flour, I don't recommend buying that in the grocery store because it's been sitting there for a really, really long time.
Right.
You don't
Mhm.
want it because it's probably already gone bad.
Right. Mhm.
Maybe look on Facebook Marketplace to see if anybody is grinding grain and they're selling it. I'm doing that
Mhm.
here so that you don't have to own a grinder, but you can get one, a grain mill. But
Oh, wow.
learn how
Mhm.
to grind, or sorry, learn how to bake bread. Because
Mhm.
with bread, you can always feed yourself, always.
Right.
And you can
Right.
feed your kids. I tell a story
Mhm.
often. When I had four kids. I had one in the oven, so four on the ground, one in the oven, and we were really poor. We had no food. I mean, no money. And I had a mentor. She had seven children, and I was kind of bemoaning the fact that we were so poor and the kids, and they're eating so much. And she
Mhm.
said, make them wheat bread. And so I
Wow.
started making them wheat bread. Number one, it was inexpensive because I did have a
Mhm.
grinder and I did have plenty of wheat in
Mhm.
storage. Number two, it's full of nutrients. And number three, it fills them right up and they love it. Put a
Right.
little honey
Wow.
on there. It was the best
Mhm.
thing. And it got me through that summer that was so difficult for us financially. So learn how to make bread.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, that's a great tip, and I have been making bread for years, but I love sourdough, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
And I recently got a recipe, from a friend of mine who, actually got it, and it's funny because I write articles for my
Mm,
local paper, and
okay.
so I wrote an article about the scoop on sourdough and the history of it.
Cool.
And my friend who gave me the recipe got it from her aunt who had it and who got it from her friend or I can't
Wow.
remember if it's a friend or family member,
Okay.
and she was actually a journalist,
Cool.
the woman who first had the recipe. So I thought that was pretty cool. It kinda went
Yeah.
around, in
Yeah,
a
that's
circle,
so
but
awesome. I love
um,
it.
but yeah, making bread is absolutely and even with the gardening, we've
Mhm.
mentioned gardening several times, and I think I wrote an article on that as well, that even if you had an apartment, you can do certain gardening things. You can
100%.
plant certain things,
100%. Yes.
if you're living in the city and maybe you get a few community members together and say, "Hey, you wanna make this plot, into a garden area," and a lot of cities are doing that where
Yeah.
they're having community gardens, so
Mhm.
there are ways to get things done. Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about the food storage because we
Okay.
mentioned the safety of it,
Yes.
making sure you've got the right equipment, not
Yeah.
using an Instant Pot for things.
Right.
Um, could you go more into the economy of it?
Mhm.
Um, More about, safety measures and how it really helps you to be a more productive person, I think. I think
Right.
when you put things aside
Mhm.
that you have that sense of productivity. And
Yeah.
how does it work also with the economy? You mentioned how where you were struggling with your finances and things
Mhm.
like that. How does it go into that?
Okay. So when I talk about a food storage, I'm not just talking about Tupperware. I'm talking about
Mhm.
having food, intentionally buying extra food and keeping it in on the shelves in the cabinets. More specifically, shelf stable food is what
Mhm.
I try to. Freezers absolutely count. Don't get me wrong, because that's where I keep most of my meat, my beef, and things like that. And my family, my husband and my kids, well, a couple of my kids, we actually grow our own meat chickens here.
Mhm.
And so we process them ourselves. We did that back in January. So I, have our chickens in the freezer, and we get
Mhm.
local grown beef and get a half a cow, that type of thing.
Mhm.
So freezers are very important. You need to know what's in them as far as inventory as well. But when I talk about food storage, I'm referring more to shelf stable food, pasta, the grains.
Mhm.
We talk about oatmeal or rice, corn,
Mhm.
even in cans, but popcorn is one as well. Um, the economy of it. So if I one of the grocery stores down here is called Publix. and
Mhm.
they do a lot of buy one get one free stuff. Their prices are typically very expensive
Mhm.
normally, but when they do buy one get one, it kind of
Mhm.
comes down like, okay, I can do this. And it's convenience because it's the closest one to me. But
Mhm.
so when pasta, let's say, goes on sale, let's say it's normally $2 a box or a pound, and it goes
Mhm.
down to $1 a box, that's when I'm going to stock up. That's when
Mhm.
I'll buy, you know, 10 pounds. I have a lot already, but if I was getting started, I would go ahead and buy 10 pounds, which is going to cost you $20. I think if
Mhm.
I'm doing no, I buy 20 pounds for 10. How's the math? Oh my gosh, I'm not mathing very well.
If it's $1 a box and you're buying it's a pound box, it'd be
Yep.
$10 for, yeah,
Right.
10 of
You
those,
got it.
right?
All
So,
right.
yeah.
You win. Thank you for mathing for me. I was like, what am I doing? I'm just multiplying. And that was not what I needed to do. Anyway,
Right.
so I buy 10 pounds, so it's a
Mhm.
dollar a pound. So I've spent $10 and now I know I have 10 meals worth of pasta.
Mhm.
Does that make
Right.
sense? So
Right. Mhm.
when the pasta goes off sale and it's back to $2, who's the winner? I'm the winner.
Mhm.
I don't
Right.
have to run to the grocery store and spend $2 on a box of pasta
Mhm.
because I just bought it for 50% off when it
Mhm.
was on sale,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so I wait until the next time it goes on sale, and everything's very cyclical in a
Mhm.
grocery store. You
Mhm.
do the same thing with pasta sauce or canned beans or canned vegetables or fruit.
Mhm.
Anything like
Right.
that is
Right.
going to go on sale at some point. Change your mindset to
Mhm.
not buying one. And I'll say, and I know budgets are tight, and I really am respectful of that. If you can push it to buying 2 to 4 extra jars of whatever it is, if you can do that with your budget, that's how you get
Mhm.
ahead quickly because
Right.
then
Right.
it's you
Mhm.
bought it on sale, it'll come back round on sale, but you now have, 2 to 5 jars of
Mhm.
pasta sauce or canned beans, whatever it is, and
Mhm.
you have this little stockpile going. And so
Right.
when you need, like
Mhm.
yesterday, we try not to shop on the Sabbath day. I try to buy
Mhm.
everything on Saturday if I have to go to the store.
Mhm.
And yesterday my daughter's like, we don't have any more cake mixes to make. She wanted to make Oreo cookies. And I
Mhm.
said, but we have brownie mixes. And so she was like, well, let's go buy some cake mixes. I said, no, we don't need to do that. We have brownie mixes. You can make this
Mhm.
work. And she did, and they're delicious.
Mhm.
But that kind of a thing. So I don't like to shop on Sundays. I want to be
Mhm.
home. That's the way I was raised. And that's
Mhm.
how I keep the Sabbath day holy personally.
Mhm.
One of the ways I should say. So having these things, and so when you need when you need to help somebody, a mom has a baby and you need to take a meal, boom, it's right there. You got your
Right.
pasta, you got your
Right.
sauce, it's ready to go.
Mhm.
You got a brownie mix. How easy
Mhm.
is that? You don't have to run to
Right.
the store, you don't have to spend money you don't
Mhm.
have because the food is
Right.
already on your shelf.
Mhm. Absolutely. And, that's what we try to do when, we can buy in bulk and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And the other thing too, like for me, and this is, my own personal dealing with it. There are things that my husband and I enjoy. Like I know every Saturday morning, we're gonna have pancakes for
Mhm.
breakfast and sausage and stuff like that. So
Right.
we ended up buying a pig from someone. We
Okay.
didn't raise it ourselves, but
Right.
bought it. They raised it and had it
Right.
butchered, and we bought the meat and everything. So we also have our goats butchered, so every year we'll have one butchered, put in the freezer. We
Mhm.
raise our own chickens. I want
Nice.
to eventually get to the place where we can butcher our own chickens. I haven't
Mhm.
got there yet
You'll get there.
because I'm coming from being a city girl, learning to be country girl.
Aw, you're
Um,
adorable.
yeah, so, I mean, I was raised in my younger years in the city, so but I absolutely am definitely a country girl at heart now. There
Yeah,
ain't no way I'm
yeah.
going back to the city. Um, but for us, say, a thing of pancake mix, you buy a big bag of it, but it's expensive if you
Yes.
have to buy that every single time. Even if it goes on sale, some things can be really expensive.
Mhm,
Um, so learning to make certain
mhm.
things
Yes.
can be just as cost effective
Yes, 100%.
as yeah, as if you're, going out and buying stuff. So we have talked about so many things, and all these questions are like, um, so throughout your experience of preparing your food and of being on top of those things, what are some life lessons that you've taken away from that? And looking back, what would you tell your younger self?
Mm. Some life lessons, and what would I tell Wendy, little Wendy? Um, as far as preparedness goes, I feel like my parents did a really good job teaching me to be prepared, meant like the mindset of preparedness. Does
Mhm,
that make sense?
mhm. Yeah,
What
mhm,
I see in a lot of people know that they should be prepared, but it's so overwhelming that they
mhm.
don't
Right,
start, you know?
right.
And so I'm
Mhm,
thankful to my mom and dad for just having that mindset of preparedness in general.
mhm,
I have learned that being prepared and being self-reliant, it benefits me first, like I said. Like it's the self-reliance, the first principle is me. When I
mhm,
take, or when you, when I, anybody takes the time to learn a new skill, whether it's bread baking, sewing
mhm,
dresses, I'm learning to quilt. That's what my summer goal is. I'm learning to
mhm.
quilt 15 minutes a day. That's all I got. So I just sew a little bit, but that's my time. Nobody can take any skill that I've learned away from me. Same with you, same with anybody.
Mhm,
It doesn't matter where I move to in the world, I can apply the same principles and
mhm,
skills to wherever. Out maybe the ingredients might be a little different or the
mhm,
climate, whatever, but that mental capacity to be prepared and to be
mhm,
self-reliant,
right.
it goes
Mhm,
with me anywhere. So if I move to, Mongolia, I don't know what kind of flour they have. I don't know what kind, but I
mhm,
can learn and I'll find a mentor. Find
mhm.
somebody to teach you. And don't be
Right.
afraid to ask them to help you. That's so important. I think that's what I would probably do more of as a young woman, as I would find mentors. I would find people I
Mhm,
know are making bread, I know are quilting,
mhm,
and not be so
mhm,
prideful not to ask and not to look stupid. Like, I need
mhm.
help learning how to do this. And
Right.
today, there's so much online that you can learn, and
Mhm.
people are out
Oh,
there,
yeah.
and there's courses and people in the community. Everybody, there's some place for them. And so
Mhm.
I would probably find more mentors, is what I would do for sure.
Okay, so you kind of answer the next question, but
Yay.
you did mention how a lot of people, and when I first started this journey, I kind of felt like that. A lot of people will look at the journey of being prepared and making their own food,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, and they do feel overwhelmed.
Yes.
So you mentioned having mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something else that you would like to say as far as bringing a message to women? How do you
Yeah.
begin and what should you do?
First of all, I would say to you and to anybody listening, you're doing great. You're doing great. You're taking care of everything, and you're probably really, really tired. And the thought of doing one more thing is exhausting to think about. So we're not going to think about it like that.
Mhm,
If we think about food storage, the first thing you can do for yourself that costs absolutely no money is just go into the cabinet and see what you have. And do you
mhm,
know, and I can send this to you too. I have a link. I made a little an AI thing where you can take a picture of your cabinet and everything that's in there in your freezer and your fridge, and you can upload it to AI and it'll tell you exactly what meals you can make. Just like that
wow.
nowadays. Like, you don't even have to think anymore. It's that easy. And so just do that. Just take inventory or ask AI to take inventory, take a
Mhm,
picture. I have 4 boxes of pasta, I have a jar of spaghetti sauce, whatever it
mhm,
is, and I have a great meal planning worksheet that you can download off my website, joyfullyprepared.com, and I
mhm,
can send you that link too. And it's a worksheet and it'll walk you through all
mhm.
the ingredients. And I have for a week's worth of food, I have 4 boxes of pasta. I need 7, so I need to buy 3. that kind of a
Mhm.
thing. But
Mhm.
you already are doing something. You already are smart because you're
Mhm.
raising children and they're
Mhm.
clothed and you wrap their little butts up and everybody's fine, everybody's
Mhm.
alive, and
Mhm.
you're doing your best to take care of yourself. You're thinking, learn, just go and see what you already have. And
Mhm.
then be happy about it. Like, really be
Mhm.
happy and grateful that you have so much food in your cabinet. And then
Mhm.
start with a plan. I know that sounds
Right.
simple and I know it sounds even kind of dumb, but really, that's the easiest place to start.
And that yeah, I was actually thinking about that. That's a great point. I was actually thinking about that the other day because my husband and I want to go on more of a keto diet for a
Hmm.
little while. And so, I'm thinking how with keto you got to go out and buy all these certain things, you got to do all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go down to my freezer. I'm going to take a stock of how much meat we have
There you
and
go.
the other things in my pantry. And then you start from there. So that is
Exactly.
definitely a good point.
Exactly.
Um, yeah. So, ending our conversation, could you just share where people can reach you? And do you actually have a book that people can
I
buy, like
need
a
to have, I
cookbook
don't
or
yet. I know. I
okay.
do have a couple things. I don't
Okay.
have like a book of all my wisdom. My kids. Okay, I do. I journal a lot, so I do have
Mhm.
that. But if you go to my website, joyfullyprepared.com, I do have freebies that you can download, like this meal planning worksheet, and I
Mhm.
have like emergency preparedness kits and different things like that. But then I also have what I call the Joyfully Prepared Library. And in there, you can go in there, and I have videos of how to can
Mhm.
strawberry jam, how to meal plan. I have two books that I've written, one on wheat, the joyful grain. It's not just wheat, it's grain, and
Mhm.
then one on dry beans actually, and
Okay.
how different ways to prepare dry beans and the science behind soaking them and
Mhm.
pressure cooking them, and how you can make instant beans from that as well. So you can go find that. There's other things on my website as
Mhm.
well, and I have a joyfully prepared podcast that you can find. It's joyfully prepared podcast, but it's also called Homesteading Made Simple, and it's on
Okay.
YouTube as well as on all the podcast platforms as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And it has been a pleasure chatting with you. And
You
I would love
too.
to have you in future episodes to talk more about your homesteading
I would
because
love that.
there has been a rise in homesteading and
Yes.
in people getting back to being self sustaining and stuff
Yes.
like that. So,
I
yeah.
agree.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being on the
So
podcast.
much fun. Thank you, Virginia. I really appreciate it.